Hi gamers, it's Marina, and today we have some more updates for Season 8. We got a bunch of stuff that was announced today, released today, revealed today. Some new trinkets, some new minions. We know what minions are going to be leaving from the neutral pool. Lots of stuff to jump into today, so we'll start today with what I think is one of the most exciting things, which is the new mechanic Trinkets. I talked about this on yesterday's video, but just a quick overview. Basically, you're going to be getting 2 trinket slots, which Fen informed me, I guess is kind of like actual World of Warcraft. You get like 2 trinket slots for whatever you use trinkets for. I'm not a WoW player, but yeah, it's always cool to hear that things kind of pull influence from over there, which obviously makes sense. But you get 2 trinkets on turn 6 and turn 9. You get 1 trinket. You get the opportunity to buy 1 trinket on each of those turns. I think you're forced to buy a trinket too. I don't think you can say no. So on turn 6 and on turn 9, you have to buy a trinket. On turn 6, you get trinkets from a pool called the Lesser Trinkets pool. And on turn 9, you get the Greater Trinkets pool. So we're going to start with the Lesser Trinkets. We're going to be looking at some of those right here. The first one we have here is Token of the Old Gods. It's a spellcraft. Transform a minion into one from a tier higher. This seems pretty cut and dry. It only costs 1, so it's the cheapest trinket that I've seen so far. So that's gonna be a choice for people who are trying to not spend a lot of money on trinkets. If that's gonna be something important, well, I guess we'll see, depending on how strong they are. But this one seems like whatever. For 1 gold, makes sense. All right, the next one we have here is Book of Medivh, which is discover a tavern spell at the start of each turn, discover another. So this is pretty straightforward. Just at the start of every turn, discover a tavern spell. And as we'll see when we get into the greater pool, a lot of these have greater counterparts. Like Book of Medivh has a greater one where you'll discover 2 spells every turn. So keep an eye out for a lot of these. If they are do 1 of something, you're probably going to see a greater version where there's multiple. Innkeeper's Stein. The tavern offers an extra minion of a higher tier whenever it's refreshed. Pretty cut and dry. Get extra minions in your tavern. This, I don't know. Getting extra minions isn't always a great thing, especially with spells in the game now too, because they just take up more slots. But yeah, pretty straightforward. Azeroth Model Globe. At the start of every 2 turns, discover a tier 6 minion. Okay, so if you're grabbing this on turn 6, that means 2 turns left. The next turn 7, you would be getting a tier 6 minion. That's not bad. That's usually 1 turn later than Galakrond would get a tier 6, assuming Galakrond is rushing starting on tier 1. Which can make a big difference. This one, I think, is going to be pretty decent. Obviously, every turn after that, or every time this procs after that, it's going to be less valuable because more people have access to tier 6. Like, the most important thing is getting a tier 6 before everyone else and having a stronger board. Yeah, it really depends on the tier 6s of the new pool. And if there's any ones that are like ridiculously OP, like we tend to have. Yeah, well, we'll see. This is, I wonder if there's a greater one. I wonder if the greater version is you get a tier 6 every turn. If there even is a greater one, we'll see. All right, Goldenizer supply. At the end of every 3 turns, get a Goldenizer. And a Goldenizer, I believe, is the spell that just turns something golden. So basically, at the end of every 3 turns, get a spell that's a Reno Jackson hero power in spell form. That's pretty decent. At the end every 3 turns, so that basically means at the end, if you're getting this on turn 6, at the end of turn 8, you would be getting something to make minion gold on turn 9. So that's not too early. We'll see how long these games are lasting, but getting in every 3 turns on turn 6 feels like you may only be using this once or twice. depending on how quick these games are going, because this last season, it feels like games went by so fast. Goblin Wallet. At the end of each turn, increase your maximum gold by 1. Alright, I figured we would have something like this. This one seems pretty decent. I think the most important thing here is that this is an end of turn effect. So you can get Goblin Wallet, and then you can have Drakari Enchanter, which is going to give you extra end of turn effects, or double your end of turn effects. So this is going to be going up by 2 every turn. If this has a greater counterpart as well, that's going to go up by 2, which means Drakari would make that go up by 4, which means you could have a lot of money, which money is pretty important. Okay, souvenir stand. When you buy your greater trinket, this transforms into a copy of it. Ooh, this seems pretty cool. Because I know that there are some greater trinkets that they have not shown lesser counterparts for. So that makes me think that some will only be in the greater trinket pool. And with souvenir stand, it seems like the only way you can double up on those trinkets. Trip vouchers. In 2 turns, choose a greater trinket to buy and replace this. Okay, so this is similar to the souvenir stand, except instead of doubling, you're just getting the option to get an extra greater. So it basically turns your lesser trinket into another greater trinket, but you still have to buy it, right? So you're paying 2 for this to get the opportunity to spend more money in 2 turns to get a greater trinket, so that you will have 2 greater trinkets. Enforcer portrait. Get an Enforcer Lightfang. Your Lightfang Enforcers have all minion types. What? Okay. This, one of the things that, I guess this spoils before we get there, is that Lightfang Enforcer is a returning minion. This is a minion that at the end of your turn buffs a minion of each type. Already, I was excited to see that minion make a comeback. Right now, it is coming back and it's buffing everything by, I believe, +3/+3. So for every different minion you have of a different type, everything gets +3/+3. Seeing you be guaranteed to get this, plus the Lightfang Enforcer has all types, this means you could just build a board full of Lightfang Enforcers and have them all buff each other, right? This is, I think this is going to be pretty strong. It may not stack up against some other, like, super scaled endgame builds, but being able to get a Lightfang Enforcer, this is on turn 6. So to get a Lightfang Enforcer on turn 6, have somewhat of a menagerie board, be getting a few buffs, and it's going to buff itself because it has all types. That seems pretty decent. Plus, you're able to grab more as the game goes on, hopefully, from your tavern. This feels like a good one. It's 6 gold, and I think it makes sense. Because you're basically paying for the trinket power, and you're paying for a minion. So, I think this is very much so worth the value. Paying 6 gold for this. This is one of my favorite ones I've seen so far. Eye of Dalaran. Whenever a friendly minion with no type dies, get a random tavern spell. That's interesting. I don't know what's going to synergize with this, right? Because if you have a bunch of neutral minions, you get a bunch of spells. Sure. Are those spells good enough to be buffing those neutral minions and giving you some kind of board off those neutral minions? I don't know. This has to be revisited when we see our whole pool, I think, to know like what we can do with this or how good this is. Bobblehead. The tavern no longer offers cards from tier 1 or tier 2. It seems really good, but also there's some times where you like having those tier 1 or 2 cards to cycle things. You're basically giving up the opportunity to have a gold version of some of those tier 1s or 2s. There's not a lot of like tier 1s and 2s that you carry to the very end of the game anyway. So overall, this seems pretty decent. You're not diluting your pool of minions as much. You're guaranteeing yourself to get stronger minions, tier 3s or above. I'm definitely going to be interested in playing this and seeing how it shapes up, if this is any good. And there's a few trinkets in here that we've already seen, but I might as well show them just for people that need a refresher or haven't seen them yet. We got Yogg-tastic Pastry, which lets you spin the wheel of Yogg-Saron at the start of every single turn. And we have Colorful Compass, which is going to give you a random minion from a certain type. I believe there's a compass for every single minion type, so you could see a compass that will give you minions of whatever type that hopefully you're looking for, or potentially minions that you don't want. So you can check out the compass and see which type it's going to give you, and see if it's worth buying. Alright, and now we are jumping into the greater trinkets. These are the trinkets that you get on turn 9 after you've already bought one of the lesser trinkets. And this one, we have one that, I'm curious to see how this goes. Iron Forge Anvil, start of combat, triple the stats of your minions with no type. Okay, so, is there going to be synergy for no type minions? I would love to see new things, but this is interesting. So basically it turns all of your non-minion types into golden Myrmidons, essentially, right? Myrmidon is that Naga that doubles its effects when it's golden. It doubles its stats. When it's golden, it triples its stats at the start of combat. So basically, any neutral minion is now going to triple its stats when your combat starts. All right, Book of Medivh. This is the greater counterpart of the one we looked at in the lesser Trinkets. This is discover 2 tavern spells. At the start of each turn, discover 2 more. So basically, the lesser one was to get 1 spell every turn. This one was to get 2 spells every turn. We also have the greater version of the Colorful Compass. We looked at this yesterday, but again, this is just you get 2 random minions instead of 1 random minion. Okay, Devourer sticker. Get a Channel the Devourer. At the start of each turn, get another. So basically, this trinket gives you the Mutinous Hero power, sort of. It gives you the spell that allows you to consume a minion on your board and give it stats to another minion. This, I think, is going to be really strong for people with tavern scaling. Like, this basically just gives you, like, the Shelemental power, essentially. Except you have to have a room on your board, I guess. You have to buy something, put it on your board, use the spell on it, you will consume it, and give it stats to something else. Karazhan chess set. At the start of combat, summon a copy of each of your minions. So, if you're getting this greater trinket, it's setting you up, essentially, to only need to have 3 or 4 minions on your board. Is this viable? Are there going to be builds where people are only running 3 or 4 minions and then just letting this copy minions? And if you have, let's say, 6 minions, will it always copy the leftmost minion first? I would think so. So you could have this and just have 1 or 2 giant minions and only leave 1 or 2 open spots depending on how many you have, and just let those ones get copied. If we have Goldrinn, if we're keeping Goldrinn and we're keeping like Mechanized Gift Horse, you could essentially have like 2 Goldrinns, a Mechanized Gift Horse, and a Rivendare, and just make like 4 Goldrinns and 2 Mechanized Gift Horses, and have that Rivendare there at the end. Yeah, that's kind of silly, but we'll see. We'll see what we do with this. Peace Bloom Candle. The first 2 tavern spells you buy each turn are free. We didn't see a lesser counterpart for this. I don't know if there is one that lets you get 1 tavern spell free. I would think so, but it seems okay. Not game winning, but if you have a board already where you're cycling tavern spells and that's buffing you, this seems good. Only 2 gold too to invest into this. Bob's Tip Jar. Gain 3 gold. Increase your maximum gold by 3. Yeah, I figured there would be multiple trinkets that are going to help you with gold. We already saw the one that increases your gold by 1 every turn. This is just getting 3 gold right off the bat and increasing your maximum by 3. So basically you're getting an extra 3 gold every turn, and it's free. This seems like it'll give you some nice momentum. Is it better than getting the extra special effects from other trinkets? I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. And then this one we looked at yesterday as well. This is Pagel's Fishing Rod. You get a random tier 7 minion, and at the start of each turn, you get another random tier 7. This is the one that seems like a nightmare with like souvenir stand, where you get 2 copies of this, and you're getting 2 tier 7 minions at the start of every turn. There's some with just very strong effects, and also if you're getting multiple, that's a much better chance of getting a golden tier 7. which I don't know. I'm not looking forward to seeing this one in play, particularly in other people's taverns. And another one we saw yesterday, Exquisite Dishware. At the end of your turn, and get a random minion of each type you control. So if you're running Menagerie, this is pretty good. We already said if you are playing a hero where if you're selling minions, that's good. Another one is Gallywix. I didn't even think about that yesterday. If you're playing different minion types and you're playing something like Gallywix, you're just getting a bunch of extra stuff to sell and get a lot more money. Yeah, this seems okay. This seems like there's going to be multiple uses for this. Is it game winning? I don't think so, but it definitely helps other heroes in situations where you do want to be getting a lot of minions. All right, this next section is all the minions that are leaving. We're just going to quick shoot through these, but I'm sad to see Sindore leaving. This has been around since Undead were introduced, and this was just a great way to counter Undead and also counter some other cards. Like in Beasts, you could you know, counter that Goldrin, counter that Spiked Savior. So we'll have to see what they end up doing to replace this. But no Sindore, no Poetic Pen Pal, makes sense. No more buddies. No Moon Eater's Champion, and no Greymane's Champion. No Fire Dancer. Okay. No Unforgiving Treant. I liked this card. Hopefully we'll get something that gives you some kind of a similar effect. It was really nice to get attack on everything, no matter the type. And no more Zap. No more Zap. Zap has come in and out of Battlegrounds multiple times, but we'll see what we get that's anti-scam. This is well, not anti-scam, but this is like scam adjacent. It helps you target certain cards, like getting rid of a Rivendare or something at the end that might have a low attack. We'll see what we get to replace this. All right, and our first brand new minion, it's a tier 6 neutral Sunscreener. Start of combat, give you and your opponents 3 leftmost minions Divine Shield. Okay. We'll have to see what the rest of the pool looks like, but this doesn't seem amazing. I can imagine if you still have like Terragosa or Poet or, you know, minions that are going to be keeping effects permanently, then this is okay for you to play for like a couple turns and you just, you know, say whatever, my opponent gets Divine Shield temporarily during combat. You hope that they're not also running dragons or something, and then you throw it away. Maybe. I don't know if there's any other use for this. It does not seem like a good card immediately, but we'll see. The gold effect, give you and your opponent 6 leftmost minions Divine. So this basically gives everyone's board's Divine Shield. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe, you know, the one thing I can think of is like, if we end up getting that card back where like every time a minion loses Divine Shield, like something, if there's a buff or something, that would be the only thing I can imagine why you'd want to give both boards Divine Shield. I don't know. If you can think of other things in the comments for how this card might work, let me know, because I'm curious. All right, 1 Amalgam Tour Group. Whenever you play a card, give friendly minions of its tier or lower +1/+1. So this is the replacement to Moon Eater's Champ and Greymane's Champ, and while it is different and has slightly different requirements, I would say overall this is so much better. Those cards were already potentially strong in certain situations. I think this takes that idea and makes it stronger in many more situations. First of all, this is an all-type minion. All types are pretty decent. Also, if you noticed from the minions that were leaving, we did not lose the Atrocity, the other tier 6 all-type minion. So that's interesting. So it looks like we're getting multiple all-type minions. That's going to become more valuable to run that. We also didn't lose a Mirror Monster. We didn't lose Jumping Jack. Interesting to say. I think Menagerie, particularly with all-type minions, is going to be decent. I think it's going to be decent. But the big thing here, when you play a card and give friendly minions of its lower tier +1/+1, so if you have this on your board and you're cycling tier 6s, you're buffing your whole board, right? Unless you have tier 7s. You're not buffing those, but it's tier or lower. Like, that's really strong. And as you might imagine, the gold version is going to give everything +2/+2. So it's not that hard to get tier 6s once you're already on tier 6 to be able to just, like, cycle these things. This seems really, really good. We're going to have to see if we're losing out on Tethys from the Pirates pool, or if we're losing Rock from the Elemental pool, because this with, like, Tethys and Rock basically replaces Greymane's Champ, which was doing the same thing. And it becomes better because now you're not only tied to even tier minions, you can have anything on your board. Yeah, this is pretty good, I think. All right, our next new minion is Free Travel Winner. At the start of your turn, if this minion survived last combat, remove this and get a triple reward. This seems decent. This is not a bad minion. You're basically buying this as a tier 2 minion, and then you're upcycling it to get a tier 3, assuming you're still on tier 2. Or if you upgrade your tavern, you can get a tier 4. Or, you know, if this thing ends up dying, if you put this in the front of your combat, right? And you want it to die so that you can start going up your tavern tiers. And then when you hit tier 5, you all of a sudden throw this at the end of your board and hope that it doesn't die. And then you can get a tier 6 out of that. Or even get a tier 5 when you're on tier 4, which is strong. This is interesting. It's like a alternative to Patient Scout, where you would be saving that on your board and then getting rid of it later to get a discovery from a certain tier. This is kind of like an alternative to Patient Scout. It's it doesn't feel as bad when you sell it early, I think. Not sell it, but have it die early and get that discovery. Yeah, this I think is going to be a decent minion that's not going to feel bad to buy. The gold version, of course, gives you 2 triple rewards when that thing dies. And another new minion, Lucky Egg. The Battlecry, discover a golden tier 3 minion to transform into. There definitely are some decent tier 3s. But again, the pool is getting shaken up. Right now, the thing that I think of is like Azurate. Azurate is a super strong tier 3. I don't even know if Azurate's going to still be in the game, or if Azurate's still going to be a tier 3. We'll see what happens, but I think traditionally there's a lot of tier 3s that are just whatever, so this doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be great. Although it is Discover, so you do get a choice, which is pretty nice. And the golden version is Discover a golden tier 4 to transform into. I don't know how viable this is. Like, you have to get 3 copies of this and not play them, right? You can't play them, because if you play it, it'll turn into something else and you won't have it anymore. So you'd have to have these just sitting in your hand in order to hope to get a golden tier 4 and hope that it's the one you want. Yeah, this seems like a situational thing. If this happens to you, you happen to get a golden lucky egg in your hand, cool, awesome. Maybe you get something that's worth playing, but otherwise, yeah, I don't know. Inspiring Underdog. Battlecry. Give your minions from tier 3 or lower +2/+1. Yeah, I don't know if this pool is going to have viable boards that are made from tier 3 and below. There was a few this season, like the Azurate. Staying on tier 3 and playing Azurate was very strong, but this minion would not be how you would want to spend your money in that kind of a board. So we'll see. We'll see if this has any real use. The golden version, of course, is to give it double that stats, +4/+2. And now we are on to our returning minions, or any changed minions, or some that are returning and changed, like Interrogator Whitemane. At the start of combat, give an enemy minion from tier 5 or higher taunt. It takes double damage this combat. Alright. Last time we got Whitemane in Battlegrounds, we only had her for, I want to say, like a week before they they got rid of her. And before, she used to read something along the lines of, give the minion opposite of this taunt and have it deal double damage, or deal double damage to it. Now it seems like they're getting rid of that. I guess too many people complained about that at low levels. I understand. Like, people aren't as savvy with moving their cards around into special positioning to counter stuff like that, so it might have been really frustrating for low level play. But this now is adding an element of RNG to it. So I'm assuming it's going to pick a random tier 5 minion from your opponent's board and give it taunt, or tier 5 or higher, right? Which means it's targeting most of the staples like Rivendare, like Gulakabra, if that's still in the game. Things like that. The combat scalers that you want to get rid of, this is probably going to be a good chance of targeting those things. I love this kind of play. I know a lot of people will kind of complain about it, but I think what this card does is it stops the meta from being so incredibly stale around those builds that just benefit from having the right cards on your board and letting the combat itself just like buff you to oblivion. So I'm curious to see how this is gonna work, if it's gonna be good or not. And then we have the gold version. Started combat, give it 2 enemy minions from tier 5 or higher taunt. Okay, so the same thing, it just gives it to 2 minions instead of 1. That's pretty good. The one thing to know is that tier 5 is also usually where your scam exists. So potentially to counter a white main, you have scam on your board, like a Leroy or something, and that gets taunted, and then that gets hit, and you know, it kind of eats up the white main taunt. But then again, like, it's random, so we'll see what ends up happening. Alright, we're getting Motley Phalanx back. This is an all-type minion. So many all-type minions in this season. With Taunt and Death Rattle, give a friendly minion of each type +2/+1 permanently. I think they're really pushing the all-type Menagerie style build this season, which I am for. I am happy to see just something different come around. I also just always think that Menagerie and all-type builds have a lot more flexibility because you can throw a minion in there that is typed from something that just kind of works with your build, you know? Golden version, of course, to give a minion +4/+2 permanently. And here we go. We saw this earlier in a trinket. Light Fang Enforcer. At the end of your turn, give a friendly minion of each type +3/+3. And the gold version, at the end of your turn, give a friendly minion of each type +6/+6. Yeah, so Light Fang Enforcer, I think, is in a good place. Again, they're really bringing back Menagerie. Menagerie hasn't been strong in a while, so I'm pretty happy. Yeah. Keep in mind, if you get that trinket, the Light Fang Enforcer trinket, this will also be an all-type minion instead of a neutral, which makes this a million times better. We're getting Deadly Spore back. This is a tier 3 1/1 Venomous. I don't love this. My initial feeling is I like that Hearthstone traditionally has kept scammy cards higher tiers. And putting a Venomous on tier 3, I'm just not a big fan of, because I feel like that was one of the trade-offs. If you stay low tier, you end up not having access to the better cards, the stronger cards, including the scam. So being able to stay tier 3 and still have access to scam if staying tier 3 is going to be viable, I don't know. It feels like it removes that balanced out like downside of being low tier. Overall, this card isn't great, but sometimes it's that clutch scam you're going to grab to get rid of some giant 1000 taunt that your opponent has. It also punishes early people having giant taunts. So that, I think, is something we're going to see way less of in this meta because people have access to Deadly Spore. Just something to keep in mind. The golden version is just double stats, nothing else different. And finally, we have a couple new spells. The first one is Cry Foul. It's a tier 2 2-cost spell. Get a plain copy of a random minion from your last opponent's warband. I don't like this. Like, I'm just gonna come out and say I am not a fan of this card being in the game, particularly in this state. Being a tier 2 Murazond is the dragon that's a tier 5 that basically has the same effect. That's like a tier 3, like it costs 3, but when you sell it, because of course you're going to sell it, you get 1 gold back, so essentially it's a 2 gold investment. This is the exact same thing without needing a board space, but it's tier 2, and tier 2 seems way low for me. This basically feels like you're going to end up seeing a lot of boards that just fall into the same typing because of this spell. Particularly in duos. I play a lot of duos, so you only have 4 teams instead of 8 people. I think in solos this maybe won't be as annoying. But in duos, this just feels like it's going to make a lot of people play very similar boards, potentially. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe it's not going to be that big of a deal, but my first impression is I don't like this card. I don't feel like it's going to be a good addition to the spell pool, but who knows? Hopefully I'm wrong. And the other brand new spell is Robust Evolution. Choose a minion, transform it into a random minion of a higher tier. It keeps its stats. I have no idea. I have no idea if this is good or not. I think it's a very situational card. This feels like a worse version of... I can't remember the name of the spell, but the spell that makes the whole tavern go up a tier. This feels like a worse version of that. Because essentially, minion has to keep the stats of the lower tier minion. There's some real low statted minions that are just like battle cries and stuff that you might not want to buy anyway, and that's the kind of target you want to use this on. And then the other minion has low stats, so I don't know. If you end up having something with really high stats, it's just such a gamble. I don't know. I'm curious to see what the benefit of this spell is, but right now this seems not great. And not great because it's broken and annoying to play against, but not great because I don't understand why you would want this effect. And the last card we're looking at today, this is Corrupted Cupcakes getting a change. This is choose a friendly demon. It consumes 3 random minions in the tavern to gain their stats. Alright gamers, thank you so much for watching. There was a lot to go through today. They're dropping new cards and new reveals every single day, so I'll be making new videos to cover that. So make sure you subscribe and check out our next video that we drop when we get a new reveal tomorrow.